Salman Rushdie, famously on Valentine's Day, 1989, the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran declared a fatwa or death sentence against you. You say you regret leaving home and going into hiding. Did you have any choice?
Well, I was told I didn't have any choice by the police. But what I subsequently learned is that every other person who received police protection in England lived at home and was protected living at home. I was told I had to leave home, and it was only me. I was the only person. And it was a colossal disruption, and I don't know what, it's very difficult to know what if, because everybody felt that the danger levels were very high at that time. And
that they couldn't protect you at home?
The argument they always use is that it would endanger the neighbors. They said it would be, by living there, you would place everybody at risk, and it's irresponsible of you. That was the argument. And we don't have the resources to protect the whole street.
Do you think the fact that you alluded to Margaret Thatcher as Mrs. Torture in the Satanic Verses affected their...
Just to be fair, I didn't do that. A character in the Satanic Verses who is an Indian character who doesn't speak English very well and has a very heavy accent.
Yes.
Mispronounces her name. And this is because I actually heard somebody do it. I was in India, actually. I heard somebody on television referring to, your Prime Minister in England. Who is she? Mrs. Torture. Yes, you see, Mrs. Margaret Torture. So, there we are. I just thought it was funny, They agree. No, I think actually, look, to be fair to Margaret Thatcher, the British government immediately offered the protection and maintained it as long as it was needed. Of course, the government changed before it ended, but throughout, the Conservative government didn't have any fondness for me and said a number of very, very rude things about me. In fact, her number two, who was it? It was Geoffrey Howe, who was Home Secretary at the time, or Foreign Secretary, I can't remember. Anyway, he said something about, like the day after the fatwa, he said something about the British people have no love for this book because it compares England to Nazi Germany. And I thought, where? It just doesn't. But so even the government was busy lying about me. Geoffrey Howe was the person about whom the Labour leader, Michael Foot, said of him that to be attacked by Geoffrey Howe was like being savaged by a dead sheep.
Right, but you were saying that even despite all that, the government did protect you, despite the...
No, they did. They offered and maintained the protection. Because I think the thing that they got was that this was intolerable, that the head of a foreign country should try to assassinate a British citizen in Britain who had committed no crime. That's called international terrorism. And they didn't, Thatcher, was a strong nationalist and patriot, and she said, we're not going to let that happen. So she did that. And the police, the police were the police got the point completely. They knew what they were defending and fighting for, etc. So I ended up with, mysteriously, something I never thought would happen in my life, the enormous number of friends in the British Secret Police, who I still have. When the book came out in England, we had a book launch party, and I invited them. They all came. So I had all these secret policemen at my literary launch. All very good-looking guys with guns, and the girls of Literary London were very excited.
Salman Rushdie, not only was your life at risk under the fatwa, but your personal relationships suffered. there was pressure on your marriages, and even visiting your son, who was 9 at the beginning of the fatwa, was complicated. How did you deal with that aspect?
Well, it was just, it was very hard, and I was lucky in that I had around me a very, very close and courageous group of friends and family, and they all helped. I mean, friends would make it possible for me to go and visit my son at their house and things like that. So people would move out of their house so that I could go and stay there for a couple of weeks.
When you talk to your older son, Zafar, now, how does he recall that time?
Well, the thing is that he was 9 when it started, and, it went on for the next decade. So he had to grow up through that, and then just as it was, coming to an end, his mother died. So it was bizarre, that he had spent a decade worrying about his father being killed, and then his mother died. And he could have, it's really, I have great admiration for him, because he could have come out of this very, very screwed up. Wouldn't have been surprising, And instead, he's this incredibly level-headed, calm, serene, sort of cool guy. And I'm the one who waves my arms around and gets excited. And he says, "Calm down, Dad."
Yeah. Has he read Joseph Anton?
Oh, he has read enough. He's read enough of it. Yeah. He doesn't exactly read my books. Not as such. No, he really, as he puts it, I've read a lot of first chapters. But he keeps promising to. He keeps saying, with this book, he said, I'm going to. He said, "Is there a Kindle edition?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, well, I'm going to get it." So I said, "Really? You're going to read a book of mine?" He said, "Yeah."
Does it bother you?
No. I think it's all those things that parents' work is not of enormous interest to their children.
But even the book of stories you wrote for him?
Yeah, no, he loves it. Haroon and the Sea of Stories is the one he
Stories.
did read, and he loves it, and it's been important to him. But yeah, if your father's a dentist and he comes home from work,
It's not the same.
You don't say, "Tell me about your fillings that you did today, Dad."
No. And 8 years into the fatwa, you had another son, Milan, with your then wife, Elizabeth West. What was that like for you? Did that change how you saw your situation?
Well, I was very, very worried about it, because I didn't know that the situation was going to come to an end, and I thought, how do you bring a child up in this crazy situation? But fortunately, actually, it was a kind of, I don't know what it was a kind of miracle baby, like the miracle baby in the book, that the moment he was born, everything got better. And he fortunately, he's now 18, he fortunately barely remembers all that. He sort of went away when he was tiny. So he had a very different childhood than his brother.
Does he read your books?
He says he will. But he read. I wrote a book for him, Luca, The Fire of Life. He's read that and Haroon, The Sea of Stories. And he's more likely to, I think. I think he's more of a, he's a very artistic kid, so I think he might.
In your new novel, 2 years, 8 months, 28 nights, stories are seen as something that tells us who we are or who we might become. What did writing your own story in Joseph Anton tell you about your own identity or what you might become?
I don't know, really. I think I could only write it when I had already answered those questions, and I think the writing of the book didn't really tell me anything new, but I think in order to write the book, I had to go through a process of really understanding what I'd gone through. And
how do you think you were changed by that decade?
Well, I think, superficially, not very much. I think anybody who has known me, through that would say that I'm still basically the same person as before, except considerably older. But I think underneath it, there are things that you learn about yourself. One of the things is I would not have bet on myself to have had the resilience to survive that decade. If somebody
And keep on writing and write during
Yeah.
that period as
yeah,
well.
if somebody had told me, here's what's going to happen to you in the next 10 years, how do you think you'll be in 10 years' time? I would probably not have bet on myself to be in good shape, and yet I sort of came out of it not particularly crazy, or not crazier,
Yes.
or crazy in the same way as before, not crazy in a different way. And I think that's something about human beings, that we are incredibly resilient beings with a very, very strong survival instinct, but we don't know that until the danger comes. Until the question is asked, we don't know how we're going to answer it. And if we're lucky and the question isn't asked, and we can just continue having a perfectly nice life. But it turned out that I was tougher than I thought, and I guess I learned that. I also learned about not compromising, I just thought there are lines you don't cross, and sometimes you have to fight for those lines to not be crossed, defend various principles, because they need to be defended, and these are kind of yes/no, free expression. It's a yes/no question, you're in favor of it or not. And this is why I get so upset these days when there's so much backsliding on this issue, and people say that they're in favor of free expression, but everybody should be careful not to upset people. Well, that means you're not in favor of free expression. I mean, everything upsets somebody, There are plenty of things that upset me, but I don't, want to kill people, really. I think Dan Brown should be allowed to write, don't you? and E.L. James, she should live for a while.
Question.
Preferably not write, but live.
Different topic for just for a moment. You've won the Booker Prize, the Booker of Bookers, and the Best of the Bookers for Midnight's Children. What do you think about its opening up to Americans? This year, 4 of the 6 finalists live in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. And I've always thought it was kind of odd. I think it's odd the other way around. I think it's odd that the Pulitzer and the National Book Award
are not open to
are
non-Americans.
limited to, I mean, literature, particularly literature of the English language. The English language has become a world literature, and there are extraordinary things being done in the English language everywhere in the world. And if you're going to give prizes at all, you may as well give it to the best book written rather than the best book written by people with certain passports. And so I think it's fine. I mean, I think, I think of the books that I've read, which I haven't read all of them, but I think Marlon James's book is a wonderful book. The Jamaican novel, Brief History of 7 Killings, which is not brief, not a history, and there are like 7,000 killings in it. But in spite of the incredible dishonesty of the title, it's a very good book.
It's fiction, Salman.
Well, the title is a fictional representation of the fiction in the book. That's metafiction. I think Hanya Yanagihara's book is very good, even though it's kind of colossally bleak. But I mean, it's very good bleak. I'm so sad. I thought Laila Lalami's book, The Moor's Account, was really good. I'm sorry it didn't make the shortlist, but I thought it might. No, I think, why not? These are talented writers. Why not let them have a go? I think it's interesting the way in which the Booker has shifted away from established writers towards younger writers. So that this year there was Franzen, there was Atwood. There's a lot of major writers. And who sort of don't seem to have been considered, whereas in previous years they might have been. So, but that's fine. It's fine. I mean, my all-time favorite Booker Prize speech was Kingsley Amis. Kingsley Amis won the Booker very late in his life for a little novel called The Old Devils. And Kingsley, you know, occasionally had a drink. And anyway, so he lurched up onto the stage. And he said, you know, I've always despised this prize. He said, but I have just completely changed my mind. That was it. Brilliant, I thought. And I think that's, there's a healthy attitude to prizes there, which is, you know, if you win, they're nice, and if you don't win, they don't matter. You know, everybody wins. You win some, you lose some. So, you know, it isn't why you do it, you know. It has nothing to do with why you do it. It has a lot to do with, you know, publishers are excited because it helps them shift copies. But, you know, you don't write thinking, will this win the Booker Prize? It never occurs to you. Or any prize. But I mean, prizes are nice. Everybody should have prizes.
It's a treat to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.